So one negative of this Diamondback cover is you can unlock the tailgate from the key, but it won't auto drop because it's kind of being held in place by the Diamondback cover. So that is the negative of this cover. Pretty nice. So my Ranger, I couldn't really fit one kayak back here without using an extension. I have a whole video on how I carry kayaks in my Ranger, but it seems like for one kayak, as long as I strap it down, I can actually just run it like this. I used to use this thing, so it's just a bed extender. They sell them at Harbor Freight, Amazon. I got this one I think for like 60 bucks. In general, they're pretty cheap. You can even find them used for even cheaper. But yeah, I used to have to use this on my Ranger just because the bed was so short, but I think I don't need to use it with the new Tremor unless I'm carrying 2 kayaks. But like I said, I'm going to put a link to the previous video, how I used to set up my kayaks in my truck, in the description. So the park I just launched from is like kind of right in between an airport and the Boeing factory where they build the Boeing 737. It's here in Renton, Washington. Let me try to turn around so you can clearly see how good I'm with this. But you might be able to see the airplanes in the background. Kind of right here, you can see like some of the unfinished airplanes. They're not painted yet, but they build them right there, and then they take them off in the airport where you just saw the airplane take off from. What's interesting is I think that airport, it's big enough for the 737s to take off, but I don't think it's actually long enough for them to land. If you're an aviation person, maybe you can correct me on that, but I've never seen them land a 737 there in all the years I've lived here. I will say one thing is I do really like this area. This is Renton, Washington. So if you're not familiar with the area, there's Seattle, there's Lake Washington, which is a giant lake right next to Seattle. And then there's this other city called Bellevue, and there's a few other cities along the way. But at the bottom of the lake is Renton, Washington. And in general, it's like it's not as rich of an area as the other cities that are on the lake. In general, in the past, not so much now, just because housing prices are so crazy. Houses used to be a little bit cheaper here. There's a little bit more crime. It's not as like polished as some of the other cities, but in the last few years, it's really gotten really kind of improved a lot. So like the downtown area used to be pretty empty, but nowadays there's a lot of little shops. There's like, we have craft breweries, we have coffee roasters and things like that. So I am glad I moved here. A lot of people gave me a lot of kind of crap when they heard I was moving to Renton, Washington, just because it kind of has a negative, or used to at least have a negative connotation with it. But it's overall a great city and I like it. There's a lot of diversity. There's a lot of like blue collar work. There's people that work in offices. There's people that do a wide variety of things, unlike a lot of those cities in Seattle where everybody's a software engineer. So that's something I like about it. And yeah, I'm very happy with moving here, and I think it's like overlooked by a lot of people. And we have access to nice little things like this. Like this boat launch is only a couple miles from my house. And it's pretty empty today because people don't tend to come out when it's overcast. There's a better look at the Boeing factory. And you can see the unfinished planes kind of lined up outside. I also like coming out this time of year because there's fewer boats, especially during the summer when it starts warming up and the sun's out a bit more. This area is packed with boats, and it's just not as enjoyable to kayak out here when it's there's boats speeding around you and there's their wake and the waves and everything. There are a couple people out here with like jet skis right now, right here, but it's pretty peaceful. And you can watch the planes land. So I don't know. Let's see if you can see that plane coming in behind me. There it is, right there. People also land seaplanes out here on this lake. Anyways, I just came out here today just because I wanted to see how quickly this new kayaking setup worked. I really like it. So it took me 5 minutes to throw the kayak in the back of the truck, a couple of minutes to strap it down, and I was just like out of the house. So like previously I had to go set up that hitch thing, and that took about 20 minutes and getting all set up. So this is pretty cool. I can almost like throw the kayak in the back of my truck, and head out here during lunch, because it took me about 5 minutes to put in and then 10 minutes to get down here. So it's like 15 minutes to actually get out on the lake. So I might be doing this more often just because how convenient it is now. A little bit more about the local kind of geography. So over here is Seattle, like I was mentioning, those downtown buildings. This thing in the middle, that's not actually the side of the lake, that's actually an island in the middle of the lake. So this water wraps around on the left and kind of surrounds this island. That's Mercer Island, which is a very rich neighborhood in Puget Sound. And then over here, the water runs through around that island, like I mentioned. And those buildings are kind of sticking out. That's another downtown area, and that's Bellevue, Washington. So it's like another rich area. It's one of the richest areas in the state of Washington. Now we're facing the opposite direction. So the Seattle's that way, Bellevue's that way. Behind me is Renton, Washington, here at the south end of Lake Washington. I have a lot of the southern end of the lake to myself today, except this little tiny seaplane that landed right next to me. As you can tell by now, there's not a whole lot of meaning to this video. It's just kind of a lot of train of thought while I'm out here on the lake. But I did want to talk about, so a lot of people ask me why I have a truck. And the truth is, I don't need a truck. Like, my livelihood isn't dependent on me being able to haul things. I don't do construction. I'm not frequently carrying like huge things in a bed or towing. I used to have an RV, but I don't have one anymore, a travel trailer. So, to be honest, it's completely unnecessary for me to have a truck, but it makes my life a lot easier. So before, I used to do most of the things I do now, like kayaking, biking, camping, all these things with my WRX, which is kind of like a smaller sedan. So I can definitely live with less or a smaller car. The thing is, it makes everything so much more convenient having a truck. Like I mentioned, it took me about 15 minutes to decide I was coming out to the lake to put my kayak in and just drive down here. With the WRX, I had to put the roof rack on. I had to attach each individual kind of mounting system for the kayak. I had to get the kayak on the roof. I had to strap that down because there's a lot more straps when you're strapping it to the roof of a car. So that whole setup was about a half an hour, and then 10 minutes to get down here and 10 minutes to get back, and then another half an hour to take everything off the car because I didn't just leave the kayaking stuff all the time. So that whole thing, that back and forth, it's like an hour just setting up and tearing it down. As to here, it's like 5 minutes just throwing it in the back of my truck. So it's like I'm saving a ton of time with the truck. Same thing with like bike riding. I just throw the bike in the back of my truck. I don't have to deal with like these kind of fancy roof mount systems like I used to with well, not roof mount. I used to have a trunk mount for my WRX, but if I were doing it today and I had to get it down, I'd probably do a roof mounting thing. But getting the bike on top of the car, sometimes you have to take the front wheel off, so you're like disassembling your bike every time you want to put it on and off the car. So the truck just saves me a lot of time, and I'm not commuting much anymore, so the gas thing isn't such a big deal. But yeah, I guess the summary of the story is I don't need a truck. It just makes my life a lot easier, and it makes it so I can spend a lot less time setting things up, tearing them down, so that I can enjoy my hobbies. And I'm sure that's true for a lot of people. The F-150 is the #1 selling vehicle in the US, and we're not all like construction like workers or working out in the oil field or anything. All loaded up, gonna probably go grab some Jimmy John's and head home. I know this video is kind of all over the place, but I like to do these every once in a while. They're kind of fun for me. So hope it was at least somewhat entertaining to you. Anyways, leave comments, likes, all that stuff, subscribe. I appreciate all of it. And like always, hope everyone's doing well, and I'll see you out there.